Full hearing. I just want to thank each of you again for taking the time to be here. Can I just ask you, if you could give us your one or at most two recommendations for what you think Congress ought to do right now? What should we do right now based on your expertise, what we've talked about today? I would be very, very curious to hear. So maybe we'll start with you, Professor Russell, and go that way.
So I gave some move fast and fix things recommendations in my opening remarks, and I think there's no doubt that we're going to have an agency. If things go as expected, AI is going to end up being responsible for the majority of economic output in the United States. So it cannot be the case that there's no overall regulatory agency for this technology. And the second thing I think would be just to focus again on systems that violate a certain set of unacceptable behaviors are removed from the market. And I think that will have not only a benefit in terms of protecting the American people and our national security, but also stimulating a great deal of research on ensuring that the AI systems are well understood, predictable, controllable. And that's it.
Very good. Professor Bengio.
What I would suggest, in addition to what Professor Russell said, is to make sure either through incentives to companies, but also direct investment in nonprofit organizations, that we invest heavily, so totally as much as we spend on making more capable AIs, that we invest heavily in safety, whether it's at the level of the hardware or to the level of cybersecurity and national security to protect the public.
Very good. Mr. Amadei.
I would again emphasize the testing and auditing regime for all the risks ranging from those we face today, like misinformation came up, to the biological risks that I'm worried about in 2 or 3 years, to the risks of autonomous replication that are some unspecified period after that. All of those can be tied to different kind of tests that we can run in our model, and so that strikes me as a scaffolding on which we can build lots of different concerns about AI systems, right? If we start by testing for only one thing, we can in the end test for a much wider range of concerns. And I think without such testing, we're blind. Like, I give you an AI system, another company gives you an AI system, you talk to it, it's not straightforward to determine whether this is a safe system or a dangerous system. So I would again make the analogy to, it's like we're making these machines, cars, airplanes. These are complex machines. We need an enforcement mechanism and people who are able to look at these machines and say, what are the benefits of these, and what is the danger of this particular machine, as well as machines in general. Once we measure that, I feel it's all going to work out well. But before we've identified and have a process for this, we're from a regulatory perspective shooting in the dark. And the final thing I would emphasize is, I don't think we have a lot of time. I personally am open to whatever administrative mechanism puts those kinds of tests in place. Very agnostic to whether it's, a new agency or extending the authorities of existing agencies. But whatever we do, it has to happen fast. And I think to focus people's minds on the bio risks, I would really target 2025, 2026, maybe even some chance of 2024. If we don't have things in place that are restraining what can be done with AI systems, we're going to have a really bad time.
Let me just thank you, each of you. That's really helpful. Let me just throw an idea out to you while I have you here, so to speak, which is when we think about protecting individuals and their personal data and making sure that it doesn't end up being used to train one of these generative AI systems without the individual's consent. We know that there's just an enormous amount of our own personal information out there in public, kind of, it's really without our permission, but it's out there on the web. And everything from our credit histories to social media posts, et cetera, et cetera. Should we, in addition to assigning property rights in individual data, explicitly giving every American a property right in their data, should we also require monetary compensation if AI companies want to use individual data in their model in some way? Professor Giungio, go ahead.
It's not always going to be possible to attribute the output of a system to a particular piece of data, because these systems are not just copying, they're integrating information from many, many sources. And so we need other mechanisms to share to the people who are losing something, for example, artists. But in some cases, it could be identified if an output is close enough to something that has been, as copyright or something. I think in that case, yes, we should do it.
Any other thoughts? That's all of my questions, Mr. Chairman.
I just
Remarkably.
have a couple more questions. I promise they will be brief. You've been very patient, but this panel is such